On a quiet park bench, a young actor sits alone, disgraced, abandoned, sinking deeper into his suffering. Then, a little girl with kind eyes and a mother who understands pain steps into his world. Through quiet conversations and shared silence, he begins to heal, not through fame or fortune, but through something deeper, the undeniable power of human connection. And in that moment, everything changes. He hadn't planned to run, but after the press conference, after the polite interrogations and the betrayal of a co-star, he once called a friend. Aiden Cross could no longer stand still, 26. That was all, 26, and already watching the flames lick at what had once felt like a dream. Not from guilt, but from shock. The cameras flashed. The silence of people who should have spoken was deafening. He drove, no map, no destination, just away. Willow Creek, small, gray, forgettable. Just what he needed. He rented a one-room cabin, drank burnt instant coffee, wore the same hoodie for days. The only constant? A bench in the town park. No cameras, no whispers, just quiet. And every day he sat there, unmoving, not hiding but unraveling. Days blurred together. He woke up not because he wanted to, but because sleep could only numb him for so long. He made coffee, pulled on the same hoodie, walked the same path to the park, where a few locals strolled dogs or read under the trees. They didn't recognize him, or if they did, they didn't care. He wore a cap low over his eyes, sunglasses wide enough to feel invisible, maybe too invisible. He sat on the bench, leaves whispering at his feet, staring at the ground like it held answers. His thoughts spun in loops. What he should have said, what he should have done, how he should have seen it coming. The betrayal, the silence, the hollow apologies from his PR team telling him to lay low until it blows over. But he wasn't hiding, not really. He was unraveling. The world he came from didn't allow for fragility, especially not for someone like him, young, handsome, and, as everyone loved to remind him, lucky. But no one ever asked what it was like to be expected to succeed, to be resented for rising too fast. No one asked how it felt when someone from his own circle whispered that he must have slept his way into a role, or how the industry pushed him forward, only to set traps and watch him fall. No one asked what it did to a boy from a working-class town, who just wanted to act, not to be famous, not to be flawless, but to create something real. And now everything real felt out of reach. That day the wind carried a chill that sank into his bones. He hadn't eaten, couldn't remember the last time he did. His fingers were tucked into his sleeves, his breath fogging in the air. His heart? It felt like a room with the lights turned off. Then tiny footsteps, the crinkle of paper, a voice soft and clear. "Excuse me," it said. "You look hungry." He blinked. Standing before him was a little girl, maybe 7, with 2 neat braids and boots, slightly too big for her feet. In her mittened hands, she held out a sandwich wrapped in brown paper. "You can have mine," she added without hesitation. Aiden stared, unable to form words. No cameras, no audience. Just this girl, offering him something he hadn't felt in weeks. Humanity. He opened his mouth, but all that came was a rush of something deep. Something raw, something almost broken. And then he realized he hadn't cried since the night everything fell apart. Not until now. He didn't speak right away, just held the sandwich like it might vanish if he moved too fast. The paper was warm, soft, real in a way nothing else had felt in days. And so was the girl, staring up at him with eyes that didn't ask for anything in return. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't sizing him up like fans usually did, trying to guess his name. She just saw a person, cold, alone, unfed, and gave what she had. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice rough. She nodded like she heard him anyway. Then without hesitation, she plopped down beside him on the bench and unwrapped a juice box from her coat pocket. "Mom says we're not supposed to bother strangers," she said casually, sipping. "But you didn't look like someone who'd bother anyone back." Her honesty startled him. He turned slightly, just enough to really look at her. Her coat was clean but frayed at the sleeves. Her mittens didn't match. There was a name stitched on her backpack strap in purple thread. Illa. He tucked the name into his chest like it meant something. "That's me," she grinned when he said it aloud. Across the park, a woman stood under a tree watching. She was maybe mid-30s, wrapped in a long coat. Hands in her pockets, face calm but alert. Her gaze wasn't on Aiden, it was on Illa. Protective, present, real. "That's my mom," Illa said, waving. "Monica. She works a lot, so sometimes we get snacks together in the park. It's like our mommy and me time." She said it proudly, like it was better than Disneyland. Aiden nodded toward Monica, a silent gesture of respect. She nodded back. "You hungry a lot?" Illa asked suddenly, her voice innocent but bold. Aiden could have lied, could have laughed it off. But what came out surprised even him. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Mostly I forget to eat." She tilted her head. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because some days I feel like I don't deserve to." She didn't answer right away. Just looked at him. Really looked at him in a way most adults had forgotten how to do. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "You looked like someone who needs to remember the good things. Like food and music, and colors, and dogs with big ears." Her list was so specific, so oddly perfect, that Aiden felt the corner of his mouth twitch. A smile, half-formed, barely there, but it was a beginning. "Do you come here every day?" he asked. She nodded. "Mostly after school. Mom's tired, but she always lets me run around for a little." Then softer, "She says the world isn't always kind, but we can be." Those words hit harder than they should have. The world isn't always kind, but we can be. Something about the way she said it, like it was an instruction, she carried in her chest, made him feel small and seen all at once. He looked down at the sandwich, then back at her. "You're very wise, Illa." She shrugged. "I just listen to my mom. She knows stuff. She says people forget how heavy other people's hearts can be." Aiden turned away, his throat tightening. No one had said something like that to him since his grandmother died. He stood slowly, brushing crumbs from his lap. "Tell your mom thank you," he said. "And that her daughter has a better heart than most people I've ever met." Illa stood too. "You'll be here tomorrow?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I think I will." And as he walked away, clutching what remained of the sandwich, he didn't feel like he was running anymore. Not entirely. Not today. The days grew shorter, and the leaves turned from green to amber. A quiet reminder that time was still moving forward, whether Aiden was ready for it or not. His life in Willow Creek had settled into a rhythm. The mornings were spent walking the same path to the park, and his routine had a comforting monotony to it. He didn't know what he was waiting for, but something was different now. Something had changed in him. Illa still brought him sandwiches, sometimes more than one, just in case. Monica, with her endless patience and unspoken wisdom, kept him grounded with her quiet presence. They didn't need to talk all the time. Sometimes they would sit in silence, the only sound the rustling of leaves or the distant chatter of other park-goers. But there was something comforting in that. They had become a part of his life in ways he hadn't expected. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Monica turned to Aiden with a look that suggested something unspoken was building between them. "You're not running anymore, are you?" she asked softly, her voice almost a whisper amidst the soft rustle of the trees. Aiden looked at her, his gaze far away, as though he were searching for an answer somewhere within himself. His fingers toyed with the lid of his coffee cup, the warmth of it sinking into his skin. "I don't think I am," he replied finally. His voice was steady now, no longer wavering with the fragility that had once marked every word he spoke. "But I'm not sure where I'm going either." Monica smiled gently, her eyes not full of pity but understanding. "You don't need to know right now," she said. "Sometimes just showing up is enough. Sometimes the path reveals itself slowly, and you have to walk it, even when it's hard to see where it leads." Aiden nodded slowly, letting her words settle in him like a weight lifting from his shoulders. He had been so consumed by the idea of moving forward that he had forgotten what it meant to simply be, to simply exist in the present without the constant pressure of what the future held, to learn from the past, not be crushed by it. The days felt lighter now, but there was still a quiet ache in him. He didn't know if it would ever go away, but it wasn't as sharp anymore. It was more like a dull throb, present but not overpowering. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, he could still hear the whispers of the past, the voices of critics, the camera flashes, the hurtful words, but they didn't carry the same weight. He was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, he didn't need the world to see him in order to be. The next week, as the first snow began to fall in soft, delicate flakes, Aiden found himself on the bench again, waiting. He didn't know for what, but it felt important. this pause, this stillness. Maybe he was waiting for the clarity he hadn't been able to grasp. Or maybe he was waiting for something else to shift inside him. Hila and Monica showed up like they always did. Though there was a slight change in the air that day, the weight of the world seemed to be slowing down. And there was something comforting about it. Aiden smiled at the familiar sight of Hila, bundled up in a bright red scarf that barely reached around her neck. Her cheeks rosy from the cold. "Got more sandwiches?" Aiden asked with a grin. Hila nodded enthusiastically, already reaching into her bag with the fervor of someone who knew exactly what was needed. "Got you a ham one today," she said, handing it to him with a grin that could have lit up the whole park. Monica smiled softly at the exchange, her eyes filled with the warmth of shared understanding. She settled down on the bench beside him, her breath forming soft clouds in the cold air. "You've been quiet lately," she said after a moment, her voice gentle but knowing. Aiden exhaled slowly, his eyes following a snowflake as it drifted down toward the ground. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice quieter than it had been in weeks, "about what I've been running from. About why I thought I needed to leave everything behind just to find peace." Monica didn't interrupt, her gaze steady and patient. She was used to the quiet, to the pauses where the unspoken truths lingered in the air between them. "I used to think that the world would stop if I didn't keep up with it," Aiden continued. "That if I stopped chasing success, if I stopped running after the next big role, people would forget about me, they would stop seeing me, and I couldn't bear that." He looked at Monica, his voice thickening with emotion. "I thought being seen was the only way to matter." Monica nodded, her eyes soft but understanding. "It's easy to think that way when the world tells you that your worth is tied to how others see you. But that's a lie. People will always be too quick to define you by what they see on the outside. But what matters is what you believe about yourself when no one's watching." Aiden's gaze dropped to the sandwich in his hands, the one Hila had given him, the one that felt like it had more weight than just bread and ham. He took a slow breath and took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. "I don't think I need to be seen anymore," he said finally, the words tasting different now, lighter, like a burden had been lifted. "Maybe I just need to be me, the way I was before all this." Monica's smile deepened, and she reached out to rest a hand on his arm. The gesture simple but full of meaning. "That's the first step," she said quietly. "And the most important one." The snowflakes continued to fall softly around them, each one unique and fleeting. A reminder that even the smallest moments could be beautiful, if you allowed yourself to see them. Aiden sat there for a long while, the cold air filling his lungs, but his heart finally felt warm. The days turned into weeks and the world outside Willow Creek seemed far away. Aiden didn't care about the gossip anymore, or the questions he would face when he returned to the public eye. What mattered now were the small moments, sitting on the bench, drinking coffee, talking to Hila and Monica. They were his anchor, his reminder that there was still goodness in the world, even when it felt like everything else was falling apart. He had learned the value of connection, the power of simply showing up, even when you had nothing to give. Hila had taught him that in her quiet way, just by offering a sandwich when he needed it the most. Monica had reminded him that survival wasn't about hiding. It was about standing tall and finding your truth, no matter what the world said about you. When he was finally ready to step back into the world, it wasn't to reclaim his fame or his career. It was because he had found something deeper than all of that. He had found himself. And for the first time in years, he felt whole. As he walked away from the park one last time, Aiden realized that he wasn't running anymore. He wasn't chasing anything. He wasn't hiding. He was simply being, and that was enough. And when he looked back at the park bench, where Monica and Hila sat watching him go, he smiled, not because he had everything figured out, but because he knew he was finally on the right path.